All right. Well, thank you, Manish, for the introduction. So, good afternoon, everybody. As we celebrate 40 years of HPC innovation, I would like to share how we are pushing the boundaries of what's possible when we combine causal reasoning with exascale computing. So I'm Neeraj Kumar from Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, and today we will explore why causal AI isn't just the next evolution, but it's a fundamental shift how we do science at scale. Let's be honest, we have gotten really good at finding patterns, as you can see. Traditional machine learning, deep learning, even probabilistic programming have given us incredible tools. But here's the thing, correlation is not causation, And more recently, I was reading a news from World Economic Forum, where I quote, where Gen AI relies on patterns, causal AI uncovers the why, What and why are the critical, really cornerstone of scientific discovery. So understanding why things are happening the way it's happening, and what's the correlation, but at the same time, what's the causation, cause and effect, is equally important. So we have gotten really far in understanding what happened, what's the correlation, but not really as good as why it's happening. And that why matters when you are making critical decisions that affect millions of lives. For example, whether it's pandemic response or climate change or drug discovery, material discovery for quantum materials, for any sort of materials. So the why is really, really important. However, the challenge is causal inference as well as reasoning is computationally very intensive, and that's where HPC comes in. So I'm going to share some stories with you, how we ended up really developing engine to understand the why aspects. I have no idea how to go back. Red button, okay, there you go. Thank you. Okay, so here is the sort of a reality check, Rewriting complex simulation into probabilistic programming language is sort of impractical, At the same time, running national scale epidemic simulations is equally difficult. We are talking about thousands of core hours, if not millions, just for inference, right? And there is a lack of scalable causal inference engine as well as reasoning engine. So here we have an opportunity, opportunity to really fuse domain simulators with causal inference on HPC system, where we can compress months of analysis into few days, So we are not really talking about incremental improvement, but it's a transformative nature. As you know, the name of this session is Transformational Impact on Scientific Discovery. So I wanna give you this, why this is the right time to solve the causal, causation. There are three convincing factors, which is what we would like to believe. First, the exascale computing. We have exascale machines, for example, El Capitan, Frontier, Aurora, Lumi, HPC, and many others, where we have a really massive exaflop performance, And then the second one is industrial revolution on the causal discovery. Google has recently proved mathematically that in order to have a robust AI, where all these LLM models, in order to have robust reasoning aspects, this requires causal model, where you are asking cause and effect, interventional as well as counterfactual questions. So once we have these two, where computing algorithmic advancement, we would be able to solve grand challenges that we have in scientific discovery. For example, pandemic response, drug discovery, vaccine design, material for fusion energy or quantum materials, and at the same time understanding trillions of neurons, brain connectivity. This would also help in really advancing learning from our brain towards a new hardwares, like our brain function really efficiently. How do we replicate the similar things on the hardware side? So this is, to the best of my knowledge, this is the first time where we both have computational power as well as algorithmic sophistication to answer why, not just what. Okay, so how do we actually do this? Well, through SIMS. SIMS is our causal inference engine for multi-scale simulation. This is a DARPA-funded ASKIM program in collaboration with University of Texas, Austin, Karen Wilcox, and Omar Gattaz, as well as Base Research Institute, where we as a PNNL is the prime to lead this engine. So there are 4 critical components for this engine. A causal query language that makes complex reasoning explainable, because black box don't work in science. Second, multi-fidelity methods that intelligently balance computational cost with accuracy. And then the third one is the continuous validation. We are constantly checking our assumptions against reality for any sort of scientific application that I shared before. So I'm gonna share some examples. But the last piece is the integration across different scenarios. We are not just building in isolation, but we are part of larger movement on the causal side. So to give you an idea, at the heart of SIMS is Cairo. Cairo is written in Julia programming language, which use effect handlers to transform any probabilistic program into causal one. And what question can we answer? For example, interventional. What if we have impulse X, counterfactual? What would have happened, in a different scenarios? And mediation, through which pathway, through which mechanism? Because we know in science we have to have some mechanism pathway in order to understand what and why. And last but not the least, discovery. What causes what? So this is not theoretical. We have been running this engine on a real problem at scale. Let me share some examples. Okay, so basically, in order to apply this engine, we follow Jude Peral's causal hierarchy, where moving from association through intervention to counterfactual reasoning, each level sort of unlocks new capability. As you can see, we have a 3 different levels: association, intervention, and counterfactual reasoning. Level 1 gives you patterns, which is obvious. Level 2 let us simulate interventional in all different scenarios, in all different possible simulation that we would like to set up for any given complex problem. And level 3, that's where the magic happens, basically. We can reason about alternative histories, alternative scenarios, hypothetical scenarios that it doesn't exist in the literature, but we can really make one in order to understand and as well as compare. So without going into details about this level of hierarchy, how we make decisions, this workflow basically transforms uncertainty into actionable decisions. Let me share with you how we are doing this. Here's where HPC becomes really essential. Traditional approach simulate one world at a time or one scenario at a time, but we, through sims, simulate multiple counterfactual worlds simultaneously. It can be 100 or thousands, depending upon the problem, complex problem that you are solving. So this isn't just faster, it's fundamentally different. Basically, we can explore entire interventional space and propagate uncertainty property, as well as scale to complex system that we previously have intractable. And we apply this engine to sort of a modeling malaria transmission with PySims, using the Sims engine. We also apply this to many different problems like, epidemics as well as material discovery, but I'm gonna discuss the use case for modeling malaria transmission. So let's see, as you know, malaria affects like almost 250 million people annually. And traditional model in the literature, as I'm highlighting here, treat human and mosquito populations separately. However, in our approach, what we did is we model them as one interconnected system using sims on sort of on a laptop as well as in a HPC environment. And here's the complexity is human progress through susceptible, exposed, intervention, and recovered states, as you can see in this progression. However, the mosquitoes population is slightly different, but these are interconnected. To give you an idea, this is where causal AI really shines. Instead of point estimate, we basically express every parameter as a decision, transmission rate, sort of a death rate, insecticide effectiveness, all uncertain, Notice the equation that we have on the left-hand side. It's a 11 couple ODEs with stochastic parameter. So basically on a laptop or a single, node, multiple CPU, GPU, this can take forever to run. However, this would take, really, we can solve this in a few days on a HPC environment, And let me share some results, Basically, PySims, our engine, makes this accessible in a way where scientists write Python node CUDA. The dashboard basically shows real-time inference on the left-hand side, as you can see, how uncertainty propagates through both populations, not only a single human versus the mosquito, but the interconnected population. So this is just not a visualization, but it's a 100 parallel simulation running simultaneously in order to get to this point. And the way we set up this model, first we calibrate against real world data, see those posterior distribution on the left-hand side. And then we run Bayesian inference, basically quantify what we don't know, Basically, as you can see on this graphic, the tighter distribution shows where data constraints or uncertainty, the wider ones on the other side. And that's where we need more research, how it happens, For example, if we have to limit the widespread of, insecticide, malaria, then how do we control this? So these are the interventional questions that you can ask. And let me share some scenarios, This is where this sort of engine really pays off, optimal intervention design. We ask on the left-hand side, what's the minimal transmission reduction to keep infection below 7,500, in a hypothetical scenarios. The system found that 50% reduction through targeted intervention, as you can see, the green as well as the light gray plot. See the green versus gray, the trajectory on the left-hand side. That is 2,000 fewer infection, real lives saved through causal infection. So with that, I really want to highlight this slide that we have we can get a mitigation strategy depending upon the parameter intervention. So we basically, in this scenario, we have two. So moving forward, we have also applied certain this PySim scenario to other application. For example, we have developed AI agent called Cactus. Cactus is a chemistry agent which generates small molecule candidate for drug discovery. So without going into detail, I'm going to move forward and share some more insight. Where we are heading with this. Today we are limited to sort of a number of computing parameters that we need. But in the future, our goal is to really, exponentially scale it, by solving engineering challenge, which are highlighted on these, on the bottom. But with that, as we know, agents are exploding. How does this causal decision-making really help us in discovering parameters? So the future is not just a faster computation, but it's an autonomous scientific discovery, because that's what we care about at the end of the day. Imagine AI agents that generate basically hypotheses, design optimal experiment, and synthesize model across domain in order to optimize decision in a real time. And that's what we are interested in, having those really accurate decision-making agents. But with that, another application that we can think about is quantum computing, which offer exponential advantage for certain causal discovery problem. As you can see on the left-hand side, through superposition, we can explore multiple causal paths simultaneously. But however, on the entanglement side, we can have a quantum causal relationship. And on the right-hand side, I'm sharing some sort of a pipeline that we are interested in pushing through quantum computing. But with that, so here's a challenge. If you are interested in joining, the causal revolution, the one thing that I would like to summarize with the causal discovery, the question of why things are happening the way it's happening, in order to understand. We are not just predicting the future, but we are understanding it. The goal is, once we understand, it comes with the power to shape it. That's when we can design new things, new material, new drugs, understand the epidemic challenge. So with that, I would like to thank our funding agency as well as multi-institutional team. Happy to answer any question at the end.